Hello there, welcome to news from Nepal television. I'm Smitu Gising Tamang. Let's begin with the top stories for this afternoon. Ruling coalition forges consensus to hold federal and provincial elections on November 20. Cabinet meeting to be held this afternoon. Rescue work continues in Saptakoshi affected areas of Udaipur. People urged to exercise high vigilance in the coastal areas around Koshi and Narayani rivers. Governments across the world express strong concerns about U.S. House Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, call it provocative and destabilizing. And Sandeep Lamichhane is selected in the draft of the Australian franchise Big Bash League 2022 draft to be held in Sydney on August 28. Welcome back. Now the news in detail. The meeting of the Council of Ministers is being held this afternoon at 1. The Prime Minister's Secretariat informed that Prime Minister Sher Bahadur Deva has convened a cabinet meeting at Singadarbar for 1 p.m. today. The meeting is likely to set the date for the provincial and House of Representatives elections. An agreement has been reached among the ruling parties to conduct provincial and federal elections on November 20. Senior Nepali Congress leader Ramchandra Paudel informed that the agreement was reached in the meeting held yesterday at Baluwatar. Rescue operation in Saptakoshi affected area of Udaipur has been started again this morning. The Nepali Army, police and armed police are continuing the rescue operations in the affected areas. According to Chief District Officer CDO of Udaipur, Virendra Kumar Yadav, the water level is decreasing in the affected areas. After 3 decades, the Saptakoshi River has returned to its course and some areas of Udaipur's Belka municipality and Saptari have been affected. Ward number 1, 2, 3, 8 and 9 of Belka municipality in Udaipur have been inundated. 1,500 households are affected by floods and 10,000 households are at high risk. Meanwhile, Flood Forecasting Division has asked to be vigilant today and tomorrow in the coastal areas around Koshi and Narayani rivers. Although the water level of Koshi and Narayani rivers has decreased slightly, it is expected to remain at the alert level. Saptakoshi flood has been eroding the west banks for 2 months and entered the lower coastal area from Belka municipality 8 Dumri Bote of Udaipur yesterday. Similarly, the flood of Saptakoshi has also eroded Gobargada settlement located in Hanuman Nagar, Kankalini municipality 13. Meanwhile, the Weather Forecast Division said there is a possibility of heavy rains in the Gandaki and far west regions of western Nepal today. Caretakers have been mobilized for imparting information about flooding in the key rivers in Myagdi. According to the District Disaster Management Committee, the local governments of Myagdi have mobilized caretakers to disseminate information about flooding in the Kali Gandaki, Myagdi and Rahughat rivers, especially in the rainy season. The caretakers are also entrusted to impart information about the flood-related early warning to the local governments, District Police Office Control Section and District Emergency Operations Center. Preparations have been made in a way to instantly mobilize the armed police and Nepal Police and Nepal Army in the disaster-prone areas from the nearby security posts based on the early warning information imparted. Meanwhile, the Soil and Watershed Conservation Focal Office informed that around 1,000 households are in vulnerable condition due to landslides and erosion. The office further shared that as many as 39 human settlements are at risk of landslide and 13 areas are vulnerable to erosion in the district. Installation of 33 kV underground power transmission line from Parsa National Park to Garimai via Pilua of Bara is to take strides. It has long been stalled. Further works would advance in the construction of transmission line after the Ministry of Forest and Environment permitted Nepal Electricity Authority for the construction in the National Park area as part of the ongoing construction of 132 kV power transmission line. According to Minister Pradeep Yadav, a transmission line will be constructed by fully adhering to the conditions set by the Department of National Parks and Wildlife Conservation. Time for a break now. We shall be back with more updates. Do stay tuned. Welcome back. Now the remaining updates. Nepal recorded a total of 915 new coronavirus cases and 2 deaths in the last 24 hours. Out of the confirmed cases, 590 were detected through the PCR and 325 were detected through the antigen method. According to the Ministry of Health and Population, a total of 6,002 swab samples were tested on Wednesday. 301 infected patients recovered during the same period, and currently there are 5,433 active cases in the country. Now the international update. Governments across the world have expressed strong concerns about U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, calling it provocative and destabilizing. On Tuesday, in disregard of Chinese side's firm opposition, Pelosi visited China's Taiwan region. The acting foreign minister of Timor-Leste reiterated the country's friendship with China, says it will stick to its One China policy, which recognizes Taiwan as a part of China. The Assistant Secretary General of the Arab League says the bloc supports China's efforts to maintain its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Pakistan's foreign ministry expressed concerns over the changing cross-strait situation. It urged countries to uphold the principle of mutual respect and non-interference in other countries' internal affairs. Cuba's foreign ministry condemned the U.S. for the high-level contact with Taiwan. It called the move provocative and destabilizing. Venezuela echoed this, adding that it was a threat to China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Meanwhile, Embassy of China in Nepal has appreciated Nepal's long-standing commitment to the One China principle and resolutely opposing independence of Taiwan. Issuing a statement, Chinese ambassador to Nepal, Hou Yanxi, also expressed confidence that Nepal government and Nepali people will continue to abide by the One China principle and understand and support China's legitimate and justified position. The first grain-laden ship leaving Ukraine passed through Istanbul's Bosphorus Strait on Wednesday and continued to its destination after an inspection team gave the green light. 2 boats carrying the inspectors, accompanied by 2 escort vessels from the Turkish Coast Guard, approached the ship anchored on the northwestern entrance of the Bosphorus Strait. A total of 20 representatives of Ukraine, Russia, Turkey, and the United Nations under the umbrella of a recently established Joint Coordination Center (JCC) boarded the ship at around 10:30 local time, 7:30 GMT, to conduct examinations to ensure the ship transported no cargo unaccounted for. It is the first successful large-volume grain shipment in almost half a year from Ukraine to international markets via the Black Sea. After the inspection, the cargo ship exited the Bosphorus Strait at around 1300 GMT. According to Turkish state-run Anadolu Agency, 20 million tons of grain are still in Ukraine waiting to be shipped. Time again for a break. We shall see you at the other side with more updates. Welcome back. You're with English News on Nepal Television. More from International Front. As California continues under a state of emergency due to the monkeypox outbreak, the city of West Hollywood launched a pop-up clinic to deliver scarce doses of vaccine to vulnerable recipients. Los Angeles County currently has 19,000 doses of the vaccine for high-risk individuals. The monkeypox virus spreads through prolonged and close skin-to-skin contact, which can include hugging, cuddling, and kissing, as well as through the sharing of bedding, towels, and clothing. The World Health Organization has declared the monkeypox outbreak in more than 70 countries a global emergency. The failure of 4 consecutive rainy seasons in parts of Ethiopia, Kenya and Somalia is posing the threat of starvation to communities in the Horn of Africa. This is a climate event that has not been witnessed in at least 40 years, as below average rainfall has left Somalia, southern and southeastern Ethiopia and northern and eastern Kenya facing prolonged drought, thus leading to increased human mobility. According to UNICEF, the United Nations Fund for Children, over 7 million children are acutely malnourished due to a lack of access to sufficient food. While drought is affecting certain regions, flooding is affecting others in what appear to be conditions caused by climate change. Over 15 million people in the Horn of Africa have been impacted by the drought. Sergio Massa announced his first measures as Argentina's new economy minister shortly after being sworn in by President Alberto Fernandez on Wednesday. During a briefing, Massa sought to bring down sky-high expectations for his tackling of the country's economic troubles as he outlined his administration's focus. Massa, a powerful former mayor who has long been a presidential hopeful, is seen as a pro-market moderate who has strong political influence and good relations with the country's business elite. Massa will have to play a delicate balancing act by calming markets that are skeptical of Argentina while also dealing with social demands in a country where nearly 4 of every 10 people are poor and there are growing protests calling for more welfare. More updates lined up at the other side, but before that, let's take a look at what we have coming up next. Foreign ministers from the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, began meetings with their counterparts from key partners on Thursday. South Korea's Foreign Minister Park Jin outlined intentions for deepening the relationship between his country and ASEAN. He was due to attend a meeting Thursday morning with ASEAN officials together with Japan and China. ASEAN is made up of Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. Now the sports update. Nepali national cricket team captain Sandeep Lamichhane has been selected in the draft of the Australian franchise Big Bash League BBL 2022 edition. The Big Bash draft will be held in Sydney on the 28th. While more than 100 players from 13 countries were registered, Sandeep Lamichhane was the only player from Nepal. Sandeep has also played for Big Bash for 2 seasons with Hobart Hurricanes. Before playing for Hurricanes, Sandeep played for Melbourne Stars for the first 2 seasons. Sandeep has a good record in the Big Bash League. He has taken 48 wickets while playing 42 matches in the Big Bash League. Last season, Sandeep took 14 wickets in 14 matches. Recently, Sandeep Lamichhane has joined Jamaica Talabas in the Caribbean Premier League CPL. Argentina, Chile, Uruguay and Paraguay have submitted a joint bid to host the 2030 World Cup. Uruguay hosted the competition's first ever tournament in 1930 and say they want to bring the World Cup home when it celebrates its centenary. Alejandro Dominguez, president of the South American Football Confederation, said this is the dream of a continent. Spain and Portugal have also announced a bid to be joint hosts. Chile hosted the World Cup in 1960, while the tournament was held in Argentina in 1978. The 2022 World Cup will be held in Qatar, while Canada, Mexico and the USA will be joint hosts in 2026. And before we wrap up, the reminder of our top stories. Ruling Ruling coalition forges consensus to hold federal and provincial elections on November 20. Cabinet meeting to be held this afternoon. The rescue work continues in Saptakoshi affected areas of Udaipur. People urged to exercise high vigilance in the coastal areas. Governments across the world expressed strong concerns about U.S. House Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, call it provocative and destabilizing. And Sandeep Lamichhane selected in the draft of the Australian franchise Big Bash League 2022 draft to be held in Sydney on August 28th. That's all for this edition of NTV News. Thanks for staying with us. Goodbye. Namaste.